Welcome to our YouTube channel Dream Dynamics.
In my years of walking this earth, observing the intricacies of human behavior, I have come to a realization that runs deeper than mere knowledge or intellect. True intelligence is not measured by how much you know or the number of facts you can recall. It is revealed in how you choose to live, how you treat those around you, and how you rise from the inevitable missteps we all encounter. Wisdom lies in your actions, in your character, and in your ability to transform mistakes into stepping stones for growth. But here's where it gets interesting. While intelligence can take many forms, there are certain unmistakable signs, 6 of them to be precise, that reveal when someone is, for lack of a better term, lacking in wisdom. These signs act as red flags, markers of stagnation or misguided thinking. Yet before you rush to dismiss or scoff at the idea of such a list, let me offer a perspective that might surprise you. Spotting these signs in others isn't about passing judgment or labeling people as foolish. Instead, it's a call for reflection. It's an opportunity to look inward, to identify areas in our own lives where we might unintentionally fall into similar traps. It's about growth, about learning to avoid these pitfalls ourselves, and perhaps even gently guiding others who might not realize they're caught in their own cycles of unwise behavior. You see, this isn't just a discussion about flaws or shortcomings. It's about self-awareness and the incredible power that comes with it. When we become aware of these signs, we begin to notice patterns, both in ourselves and in others. And with awareness comes the ability to change, to adapt, and to strive for a life of deeper understanding and fulfillment. So, I invite you to join me on this journey of discovery. Together, we will explore the 6 undeniable signs of a foolish person. Each one carries with it a valuable lesson, a meaningful story, and a mirror for us to hold up to our own lives. These signs are not meant to criticize or tear down. Rather, they are stepping stones toward personal growth and collective wisdom. Because, as I've come to learn, the path to wisdom always begins with awareness, an honest acknowledgement of where we are, so we can chart a path to where we want to go. Are you ready to walk this road with me? Let's embark on this exploration, uncovering not just the signs but also the truths that lie behind them, so we may all strive to live with greater understanding, compassion, and purpose. Let's begin. The first sign, a closed mind. A closed mind is the fortress of ignorance, built brick by brick with fear, pride, and stubbornness. This fortress keeps new ideas at bay and traps its owner in a cycle of stagnation. People who harbor closed minds not only reject change and innovation, but also hinder their own potential for growth. They live within rigid, self-imposed boundaries, where everything must conform to their familiar rules, and anything that challenges their worldview is perceived as a threat. Ironically, their outward confidence often masks a deep-seated insecurity. For true confidence lies in the understanding that no one can know everything. Let me share an example of Mark, a department manager at a company where I once worked. Mark was adamant that the old ways of working were the best, even as the world around him evolved. His team began to fall behind competitors who embraced modern methods. When a younger employee suggested implementing new project management software to improve efficiency, Mark dismissed the idea outright with the tired refrain, "We've done it this way for 10 years and it's worked fine." His rigidity came at a cost. While other teams in the company thrived with updated processes, Mark's team struggled with inefficiency and declining performance. Instead of recognizing the need for change, Mark blamed external factors, his staff, the market, even luck. He clung to his entrenched mindset, unable to see that his resistance to growth was the root cause of his team's struggles. His refusal to adapt not only stalled his personal progress, but also stifled the growth of everyone around him. A closed mind doesn't just reject new knowledge. It casts a shadow over the possibilities for those in its orbit. It creates an environment where creativity is stifled, innovation is seen as a threat, and progress becomes an uphill battle. In contrast, wise Zen masters understand the importance of humility and adaptability. They embrace the idea that the journey of learning is endless and are unafraid to admit when they are wrong or when they don't have all the answers. Zen philosophy teaches us that wisdom is not about always being right, but about the courage to adapt, improve, and learn from others. True growth happens when we recognize the value of fresh perspectives and challenge the walls of our own rigid thinking. If you find yourself resisting change or rejecting new ideas, pause and ask yourself, what am I afraid of losing by embracing the unfamiliar? The answer might surprise you, and it could be the key to unlocking new opportunities for growth. Remember, there is strength in admitting, I was wrong, and I want to learn. Only when the walls of fear and stubbornness crumble can the seeds of wisdom truly take root. By fostering an open mind, you create not just a pathway to your own growth, but a ripple effect that inspires those around you to strive for their best as well. The second sign, constant blaming. Foolish people are masters of excuses, skilled at deflecting responsibility for their failures and shortcomings onto others. For them, nothing is ever their fault. A failed project, the market was too tough. A missed promotion, the boss was biased. A strained relationship, the other person just didn't understand them. On the surface, this might seem like a survival strategy, a way to protect their self-humor and avoid uncomfortable truths. But beneath this facade, blaming becomes a heavy chain that shackles them to stagnation, keeping them from learning, growing, and achieving their potential. Blaming is a shield, yes, but it's a shield that becomes a prison. When we place the blame elsewhere, we relinquish our power to change the outcome. Growth begins when we take responsibility for our actions, no matter how uncomfortable that truth might be. Consider Lisa, an event organizer I once worked with. She was responsible for planning a high-profile conference that was supposed to attract hundreds of attendees, but the event flopped with embarrassingly low attendance numbers. Immediately, Lisa shifted the blame to the marketing team, accusing them of not promoting the event effectively. However, when the situation was examined more closely, it was discovered that Lisa had failed to send the event details to the marketing team on time, which delayed their campaign efforts. Even when confronted with the facts, Lisa refused to acknowledge her role in the failure. She doubled down, continuing to point fingers at everyone but herself. Her colleagues lost trust in her, and her reputation as a team player suffered greatly. Over time, Lisa's inability to take accountability not only alienated her coworkers, but also led to her stepping down from her position. Had she chosen to acknowledge her mistake, apologized, and worked to improve, she might have salvaged both the project and her relationships. Responsibility, though often heavy, is the gateway to growth and resilience. She must work to save her employer and remain the person less likely to make situations hazy as expected. Wise Zen masters understand this deeply. They do not fear admitting their mistakes because they see every failure as a lesson, a stepping stone on the path to mastery. Zen philosophy reminds us that owning up to our actions, no matter how uncomfortable, is the only way to transform challenges into opportunities for self-improvement. By embracing responsibility, we empower ourselves to take control of our lives and chart a better course forward. If you find yourself falling into the trap of blaming others, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, Have I done everything I could to ensure success? Is there something I could have done differently? What can I learn from this experience? Blaming others won't change the outcome, but taking responsibility will transform who you are. It's a simple yet profound shift. When you stop pointing fingers and start looking inward, you reclaim your power to grow and thrive. Wise individuals understand that mistakes are inevitable, but growth is a choice. They don't shy away from their shortcomings. Instead, they confront them head-on, learn from them, and use them as fuel for improvement. Choose the path of truth and accountability. By doing so, you'll not only grow stronger, but also inspire others to rise to their best selves. Take responsibility. It's the first step toward the greatness that lies within you. The third sign, arrogance over humility. Have you ever met someone who is so consumed with proving their brilliance that they miss the opportunity to actually learn or grow? This is one of the clearest signs of a foolish person: arrogance. Arrogance isn't just an overinflated sense of self. It's a barrier, a wall that blocks out new ideas, feedback, and collaboration. Beneath the surface, arrogance is often rooted in insecurity, a desperate need to feel important or superior. But ironically, the louder they try to shout their greatness, the more they reveal their lack of wisdom. Truly intelligent people don't need to boast or dominate. They know that wisdom doesn't come from speaking over others, but from listening, observing, and adapting. They embrace humility, understanding that learning is a lifelong process. Every moment, every interaction holds a lesson. But arrogance blinds people to these opportunities, leaving them stuck in their own echo chamber. Take Michael, for instance, a manager at a large corporation I once observed. Michael had all the credentials and a polished demeanor, but his attitude often overshadowed his skills. In meetings, he would dominate the room, interrupting colleagues mid-sentence and dismissing ideas that weren't his own. His need to be the smartest person in the room made collaboration nearly impossible. Once, during a critical project that required teamwork and fresh perspectives, Michael's arrogance led to the project's failure. He ignored valuable input from his team, convinced that his ideas were superior. When the project fell apart, he was quick to blame others, insisting that they didn't understand his brilliant vision. But in reality, it was his inability to listen and his refusal to adapt that derailed the entire effort. When confronted by his boss and asked to reflect on what went wrong, Michael struggled to find answers. His arrogance had blinded him to the truth that growth requires humility, and leadership is about empowering others, not overshadowing them. Humility, in contrast, is not about diminishing yourself, but about creating space for growth, for yourself and others. It's the quiet confidence to admit that you don't have all the answers, and the strength to seek out those who can teach you. Zen philosophy beautifully captures this essence. It reminds us that wisdom flows like water, filling only those who remain open and adaptable. A Zen master doesn't seek to dominate a room or prove superiority. Instead, they lead by example, valuing silence over noise and reflection over reaction. Humility is the bridge that connects us to greater understanding, deeper relationships, and meaningful success. If you ever find yourself caught in the trap of arrogance, pause and reflect. Am I trying to learn and grow, or am I seeking validation and recognition? Arrogance feeds the ego, but humility feeds the soul. It allows you to see others not as competitors, but as collaborators, and it opens doors to perspectives you might never have considered. True intelligence lies in the ability to make others feel seen, heard, and valued. It's not about making yourself look better, but about making the whole team, the whole environment, thrive. When you quiet the noise of arrogance and let humility guide you, you'll find that people respect and trust you more, and more importantly, you'll find that you're able to grow in ways you never imagined. So, choose humility. Be brave enough to admit when you're wrong, bold enough to ask questions, and wise enough to listen. Wisdom begins where arrogance ends, and with humility, you can unlock a world of growth and possibility. The fourth sign: lack of empathy. A lack of empathy is one of the most glaring markers of ignorance, a sign of a heart and mind closed off from understanding the experiences of others. Empathy is the ability to step into someone else's shoes, to grasp their emotions, struggles, and perspective. Without it, people become disconnected, isolated within their own narrow view of the world, oblivious to the pain or joy of those around them. This isn't just a barrier to meaningful relationships. It diminishes a person's depth, leaving them shallow and emotionally stunted. A life without empathy is a lonely one, devoid of genuine connection and mutual growth. Let me tell you about Paul, a colleague who embodied this trait all too well. Paul had an exceptional ability to critique, but lacked the capacity to understand the stories behind others' actions. One year, during a particularly demanding project, a co-worker named Susan missed an important deadline. Susan's son had been seriously ill, and she was struggling to balance her work with her personal responsibilities. Instead of offering support or understanding, Paul chose to publicly criticize her during a team meeting, saying, "Deadlines don't wait for personal issues." His words stung, not just for Susan but for the entire team, who silently disapproved of his harshness but feared speaking up. Paul's lack of empathy continued to alienate his co-workers. He was quick to assign blame and slow to consider anyone else's circumstances. But life has a way of teaching us lessons. A year later, Paul found himself in a similar situation when his mother fell gravely ill. Suddenly, he was juggling work with hospital visits and sleepless nights. As deadlines loomed and stress mounted, Paul began to recall the pain and humiliation Susan must have felt during that meeting. For the first time, he understood the heavy toll of trying to meet professional expectations while grappling with personal crises. It was a humbling experience, one that forced him to confront his own insensitivity and reevaluate his approach to relationships. A lack of empathy doesn't just harm those on the receiving end. It diminishes the one who lacks it. Without the ability to connect deeply with others, opportunities for growth, understanding, and collaboration slip away. Zen philosophy teaches that true wisdom isn't about knowing everything. It's about understanding the interconnectedness of all things. Empathy is the thread that weaves this connection, fostering a sense of unity and mutual respect. Those who lack empathy isolate themselves, shutting out not only the people around them, but also the valuable lessons that come through relationships. Empathy is often misunderstood as a sign of weakness, but it's the opposite. It's a profound strength. It allows us to bridge the gap between ourselves and others, fostering compassion and mutual respect. An empathetic person doesn't just improve the lives of those around them. They enrich their own soul, gaining insights and perspectives that can't be achieved through intellect alone. Empathy enables us to navigate the complexities of life with grace, making us not only better individuals, but also wiser human beings. If you find yourself struggling with empathy, start by listening, truly listening, without judgment. Instead of forming opinions or crafting responses, focus on understanding the emotions and experiences behind someone's words. Ask yourself, how would I feel in their situation? This simple exercise can open your heart and mind, allowing you to connect on a deeper level. Remember, empathy isn't just about helping others. It's about expanding your own humanity. In the end, empathy is the bridge between ignorance and wisdom, isolation and connection. It is a gift that costs nothing, but has the power to transform lives. including your own. By practicing empathy, you not only nurture meaningful relationships but also lay the foundation for a life of true understanding, compassion, and inner peace. Choose to see the world through the eyes of others and watch how your perspective and your life begins to change. The fifth sign, the fear of change. The comfort zone may feel safe and familiar, but it's also a trap that holds us back from discovering our true potential. Those who fear change cling to old routines and traditions, even when these have outlived their purpose. It's like trying to hold on to sand as it slips through your fingers. No matter how tight your grip, change is inevitable. Life, my friends, is like a flowing river. It twists, turns, and reshapes the landscape as it moves forward. The wise learn to adapt, flowing with the current, while the foolish remain stuck, fighting against it, only to find themselves swept away. Let me tell you about Michael. He spent his entire life in a small, close-knit neighborhood where he knew every street corner and every face. For decades, he resisted any suggestion of moving, saying, "Why would I leave? I've built my life here." His grown children urged him to move closer to them, in a community with better opportunities and healthcare options, but Michael refused, fearing the unknown. Over time, however, the neighborhood changed. Longtime friends moved away, familiar shops closed, and the once bustling streets grew quiet. Michael found himself increasingly isolated. Eventually, circumstances forced him to reconsider. Reluctantly, he moved to be near his children. And to his surprise, he found a new community that welcomed him with open arms. Not only did he discover new friendships, but he also uncovered hobbies and opportunities he had never considered before. What Michael feared turned out to be one of the best decisions of his life. The fear of change doesn't just keep us in our comfort zones. It also robs us of growth, adventure, and new possibilities. Zen philosophy reminds us that change is a fundamental part of life, as natural as the seasons. Resisting it is like trying to stop winter from giving way to spring. It's futile. Instead of fearing change, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen, and what's the best that could happen? More often than not, you'll find that the rewards far outweigh the risks. Life doesn't wait, and neither should you. Embrace change as a step toward personal transformation, and watch how it enriches your life in ways you never thought possible. The sixth sign, talking more than listening. We've all encountered someone who dominates every conversation, always eager to share their opinions while rarely pausing to hear others. This is a hallmark of foolishness, talking more than listening. Such people love the sound of their own voice, often interrupting and dismissing others' thoughts. What they fail to realize is that wisdom comes not from speaking, but from listening. When we listen, we learn, grow, and build stronger relationships. When we don't, we push others away and remain stagnant in our own limited understanding. Let me share a story about John, a father who unknowingly alienated his family. Every evening at dinner, John would monopolize the conversation. His children would try to share their stories from school, but John would interrupt with his own anecdotes, dismissing their experiences as insignificant. His wife, too, often suggested changes to help the family manage finances better, but John brushed her ideas aside, insisting that his way was the only way. Over time, his family grew quiet at the dinner table, feeling unheard and unvalued. John's behavior created an invisible wall between him and his loved ones. It wasn't until one of his children openly expressed their frustration, saying they felt like their voices didn't matter, that John began to reflect on his actions. Listening is not a passive act. It's a skill, a form of respect, and an expression of love. Zen philosophy teaches us that listening is the foundation of wisdom. In silence, we find clarity, understanding, and deeper connections. Talking without listening, on the other hand, is like shouting into an empty room. Your words may echo, but they leave no impact. If you see yourself in John's story, take a moment to pause. The next time someone shares their thoughts, resist the urge to respond immediately. Instead, listen with the intent to understand, not just to reply. By doing so, you'll create an environment of trust, respect, and mutual appreciation. So we've explored 6 unmistakable signs of foolishness: a closed mind, constant blaming, arrogance, lack of empathy, fear of change, and talking more than listening. But before you start wondering, have I been foolish? Let me assure you, everyone has. These traits aren't unique to any one person. They're part of the human experience. We've all resisted change, blamed others, or failed to listen at some point in our lives. The difference lies in how we respond once we recognize these tendencies. Here's the truth. Recognizing these signs isn't about labeling yourself or others as foolish. It's about identifying opportunities for growth. Zen philosophy reminds us that wisdom isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Each of these 6 traits holds a lesson, a chance to reflect, adapt, and become a better version of yourself. If you've noticed a bit of yourself in one or more of these examples, take it as an invitation to evolve. Acknowledge your areas for improvement. Step outside your comfort zone and embrace the possibility of change. Listen more, blame less, and strive to see the world through the eyes of others. This journey isn't for the flawless, it's for the courageous, the ones who can look within and say, I can grow, I can do better. Foolishness is temporary, but wisdom is a lifelong journey, and on this path, you're not alone. We're all walking it together, learning, stumbling, and growing along the way. Thank you for being part of this journey. If these insights resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's continue exploring life's lessons, one step at a time. Remember, growth begins with awareness, and the journey to wisdom starts with a single choice. Choose wisely.